and welcome back to another episode of Green Jeans. I am your one co-host, Annika Van Rossum.
And I'm your other co-host, Maya Van Rossum.
And if you haven't been with us before, we talk about important environmental and social justice issues through a generational lens, because if you couldn't tell by our names, we are related. And I am just starting on my activist path, and my mother has been doing it for many years. So that is what we do. Super proud to have you guys join us. Mom, do you have a fact check for us this week?
Well, I do have a fact check, but two things. First and foremost, we need our listeners to send in questions for the fact check, because it's very hard to come up with these fact check questions and to know what checks they want what facts they want checked. That's number one. Number two, at a recent show, I was looking for a fact check, and my wonderful husband, David Wood, who's been on the show, our friendly teacher, wrote up a whole great thing. I'm holding up a piece of paper with all kinds of notes for that fact check. And when the time came to do that fact check, I couldn't figure out what he was trying to say. So I ended up looking up something from EPA about electric cars. But Dave is home from teaching all day. And so I invited him to do his fact check himself. So David, come to the screen and the microphone and tell us your fact check.
I have to be a little taller. So we decided to look into the idea that electric vehicles, you often hear that electric vehicles are no better than gasoline vehicles, and we need to stick to gasoline vehicles because they're just the same amount of difficulty, and we're getting all that power from the dirty grid, and therefore it's no good. So I looked into this, and there are some interesting facts that we're going to share. The one is that there's a great calculator on the Department of Energy's website, which allows you to put in the type of car you may purchase, along with the type of car that you currently drive, and you can figure out how much CO2 you're going to prevent from going into the atmosphere. And it's somewhere between 3 and 4 times less with an electric vehicle over a gasoline vehicle. Obviously, it depends on size and the type of electric vehicle you get, but it's much more energy efficient and much more greenhouse gas conscious. So the other thing that people will say is with that is, well, you're not thinking about the electric vehicles manufacturing process, which does require, according to an MIT study, almost 30% more in energy production to produce an electric vehicle. But by the time you look at the long-term life of an electric vehicle, you make it up into 3 to 4 times greater efficiency of the vehicle than you do in that production cost up front in impact on greenhouse gases. But we also have to look at the fact that electric vehicles are in their early stages, and it's going to get better in that manufacturing. The production emissions are going to come way down as time goes on. So I think that that'll even out even more than it currently is. The other thing we need to do is start doing some societal changes like walking, biking, using public transit to reduce emissions, along with the use of electric vehicles. And right now, you have to look at gasoline engines are at their top, most efficient. Electric vehicles are at the bottom, the emissions floor, if you call it emissions floor. And through changes that are going to come through technology, that floor can only rise, whereas the emissions from gasoline vehicles are at the ceiling, and they're not going to go anywhere. So electric vehicles are much better than gasoline vehicles, and we know it. And I just did the research to prove that that's true.
Awesome fact check. Aren't we a cute couple? Oh, yeah. You just stepped out of the screen. What a cute couple. Okay, thank you, dear.
High school
No
sweethearts.
problem. I'll take this away from you.
Yeah, so boy, he did a really great job with that fact check. I did a limited fact check on electric vehicles when I couldn't understand his notes, but now you see why I invited him to do that. That was very thorough.
No, I thought that was good. And I feel like the last couple of weeks, just with the gas price hikes and things going on because of the war in Ukraine and things like that, it's been, people who don't know how gas prices actually work are like, oh, it's Joe Biden's fault. See, like we wouldn't have these prices if Trump were president. And it's like, it's really not in any president's control solely. The price of gas is like, they don't just say like, oh, I think I'm going to price gas at like $4.30 or $3. Like it depends on what's going on in the world. And I think it's clear. It should have been clear forever ago, but I think it's becoming obviously more and more clear that like energy independency would be great for America, and electric vehicles are one of the many options that we could get there.
Yeah, and let's define energy independence. Energy independence is clean and renewable energy. It is not fracked gas or any form of fossil fuel. Fracked gas is not a bridge fuel. It's a plank fuel. It's a plank to death. For the planet, for the people. So it really is clean and renewable energy. And I say that all the time. I mean, most of, an increasing amount of the fossil fuels that's being fracked out of the ground here in the US is not for use here in the US. It's for export overseas because the fossil fuel companies can make more money. And in fact, we're seeing that right now. There's this massive call. We need all of these LNG export facilities approved right away because of what's happening with fuel prices. But the truth is, they're not going to get approved right away, and they're certainly not going to get built right away. It takes several years. And by the time all of that happens, the war and this current moment is over, number one. And number two, if we do that, we are just further killing the planet and future generations. And that's just fundamentally wrong when there is that other option, genuinely clean and renewable energy. And, European nations are pursuing the clean energy path. So if we really want to be energy independent, we've got to get on the clean energy path ourselves so that we're the leads and we're not buying solar panels and windmills from foreign nations, but, they're buying them from us. So.
And having American workers to make them at home too. I mean, it's just all those things. Like, I find the rhetoric of a lot of people who I don't align with their views to be kind of like, if they did some research or were actually open to the conversation of the reality of what's going on, like energy independent industries that are clean and renewable and all that stuff provide like really great options for the workforce and for people to not necessarily like, if you believe in doing like hard work with your hands and you don't want to have to go and you're like, I don't want to get a bachelor's degree in politics. Well, I don't know, like whatever that I feel like people are like, oh, you're a liberal because you're getting this kind of degree. Like you want to work with your hands. Okay, then get a degree in electrical engineering and work on solar panels or work on windmills. Like there's so many great ways to do it that we can create more jobs at home, which I constantly hear a lot of people saying like, bring jobs back to America. Well, that's one really big solution right there for you.
Yeah, in fact, the research is just universal. You create 3 to 5 times the number of jobs if you go down the clean energy path. And they are jobs that are more accessible to people. They run the gambit, blue collar, white collar. They're jobs where you can come in at the bottom floor, learn your way up, right, to more responsibility and a bigger salary. So it's really much more accessible. So you're right. If you truly believe in energy independence, if you really want to create jobs for Americans, and you care about children and children yet to be born and grandchildren, whether or not you have kids, it's worthwhile to care about kids. And if you believe that we should care about others, then we need to get on that clean energy path. So
I would agree.
And by the way, all the research too is pretty clear coming out right now. Fossil fuel companies are making money hand over fist right now. They are making gobs of money because they are using this moment to push their personal profit agendas. Export facilities are not about the war. It's about the fossil fuel companies making more money. That's what all of this is about. So they're making gobs of money, while if you drive a car that accepts gas, you are paying at the pump in order to fuel their profits.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I think that just like says it all.
So So today's guest, very interesting. Her name is Jessie Lou, and she has a sustainable clothing company. So I am super psyched to learn about this. I actually got a donation in support of the New Jersey Green Amendment work, and I said thank you. And Jessie came back with a response that she was really happy that she was able to support our New Jersey Green Amendment movement with some of the funds from her sustainable clothing company. And I said, what? You have a sustainable clothing company? We need you on the show. And she said yes. And so that is today's guest. So I'm excited to have her.
Hello.
Hi, Jessie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. So we are so excited that you're on the show. I know that we've met through our New Jersey Green Amendment work. Have you ever had a chance to interact with Annika in any way?
No.
I don't think so. No, don't worry. The answer can be no. It's fine.
Good. So I'm just introducing you. So I was just telling everybody a little bit about you, Jessie, and your very kind donation. And that you mentioned that you had a sustainable clothing company, which was super exciting. But what we like to do, so I've given you a little bit of an intro, but we really like to have our guests introduce themselves so that you could give all the wealth of information about who you are and what you do and what you want the audience to know about as sort of a setup for our conversation, figuring you can always introduce yourself better than anybody else can introduce you.
Yeah.
So if you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself and your company and why you're here, that would be superb.
So I'm Jessie, and I'm currently a senior in high school. And basically, I love to like design and I love business, and I wanted to like use my skills and background knowledge in like economics and business in order to create a sustainable brand, because I am passionate about like sustainability because I've been exposed to it many times. Like in my school, we always talk about sustainability in my environmental science class and also in economics. And so using these knowledge and skills, I wanted to create like a bigger difference through taking action and being sustainable myself. And so that's how AGL clothing was started. And so basically I take thrifted clothing and secondhand clothing, and then I rework them using the sewing machine into something that's trendy, because a lot of the times, like there's so many fast fashion stores, like Forever 21, for example. I would walk into the mall and it'd be like clothing everywhere on the ground, and that like kind of hurts. So basically I wanted to like take the clothing that's not used and rework it to something trendy so that it's more attractive for like the younger audience, and so that people are more willing to have secondhand clothing. And yeah, that's basically the purpose of my sustainability. And that's why I wanted to donate to the Green Amendment, to take the proceeds from my sustainable business and help for the amendment. Yeah.
That is so cool.
I'm so jealous. I just like it takes so much talent to be able to like create that, and I think also to reimagine things that are already made, and like you said, to create it so that people are like, it's more trendy.
Yeah.
And I love that. I don't know if like, I know that the youth call like things my generation does like chuggy is the term I'm hearing now. So I don't know if the fashion, maybe I'm too chuggy now for things, but I just think that's so cool. And like, I wish I could look at clothes and be like, oh, this is how I'm going to change it. So I think that's really talented of you.
Yeah. And I think it's like very enjoyable. Like I love like redesigning clothes because I like learned design before. I like do a lot of like art related activities at school. I've already like thought that it would be really good to use this design school to make a change. So it's like very fun. It's like looking at a piece and like thinking about designing, oh, what can I make to like make this look cool? And then after I finish it and it's like looks good, it makes me really happy. So it's just like a lot of joy that goes into it. Yeah.
And then once you make one of these really incredible pieces, how do you put it out to the world? Do you put it on a website? Do you take it to a shop? How do people find and get to see what you're talking about?
So the main platform that I use is like Instagram to showcase all the clothes. I did set up a website, but it's like still not very done, but it's like getting there. And I also like sell on like certain platforms like Poshmark, Depop sometimes, just to like get it out there even more, because each platform has a different audience. Like Poshmark is like specifically like people who want to buy clothing, and then Instagram, it's more like, you know, just interaction with like the consumers. And also sometimes I would like, I think a while back there's like these two kind of like micro influencers who like contact me just to like promote the clothes. So that's like another good thing about Instagram, because you can reach, you know, younger, smaller influencers to promote it. Yeah, it's fun.
Very cool. And so I think one of the things we try and do on this show too is make topics accessible to people that maybe are just starting on their environmental realm. Because I do think sometimes environmentalists get on, like, we throw around a lot of terms. Like I remember, even because I'm in law school and I just said NEPA in a casual conversation, and somebody was like, what is that? And I was like, oh, I forgot that not everybody knows that. So for people that haven't heard of fast fashion, like you just said, fast fashion is a term used to describe new styles of clothing that are manufactured quickly and sold at very low prices. So like you said, Forever 21 is a pretty big fashion. I will admit, when I was in high school, I bought a lot of Forever 21.
Yeah.
Very
Same.
poor quality, very thin, like, clothing. Yeah.
Mhm.
But what kind of, was it through these classes that inspired it? Like, how did you, I guess, like, how did you kind of, you know, start thinking like, this is a talent I have and how I can put it forward in the world? And also I think it makes a lot of change that people don't actually think about. Like sustainable clothing is a really big impact.
What's interesting is that like my first like realization of this sustainable thing happened when I was on a cruise ship like a long time ago. It was like I was in this club at this cruise ship, and basically there was a competition where you have to take the materials from your surroundings and make something out of it and create a fashion show. So I basically took like these discarded trash bags, like plastic trash bags, and I reworked it into like an Asian like dress, and then I put it on a model, and I thought it looked like really nice. And so like I've been passionate about like creating since then. And so that's how it all started. But then when I got to high school, I started taking like economics and like environmental science. And in economics, we talk about like sustainable policies and like influencers, how policies affect sustainable development in the world. And then environmental science, yes, we talk about like trash, waste. And so that really grounded my knowledge in sustainability. But my first like realization of it was like when I was super young at the cruise ship. Yeah.
That's really cool. Well, we got to give that cruise ship some credit. So
Yeah.
can you, so I mean, Annika gave a definition for fast fashion. Can you explain a little bit more sort of from your perspective, what that is and why it's bad, and why sustainable clothing and reusing clothing in whatever way one does it is so important environmentally and socially?
Yeah, so fast fashion, it's like really bad because I know a lot of like clothing brands, they use like sweatshops to create those clothing, and like child labor maybe for some stores, and it's like very like dangerous and super low cost, and I don't think it's ethical for like the workers at all. And also it's just very detrimental to the environment, because a lot of the fast fashion, people would just buy like clothes that would last maybe a couple months just to keep up with the trends. So it just keeps on getting wasted over and over again. And then they would just like, I believe, like land up in landfills. And then it's like hard to just like let it degrade if it's like not sustainable itself. If the material used by those fast fashion brands are like not easy, like what's it called, decompose easily. And then so I think the reason for why fast fashion is just so popular is because like I remember in econ class I did this presentation. It's about like behavioral economics. It's like how people think. And a lot of young people, they always like, it's like societal pressures too, like peer pressure, be like, oh, I gotta wear this because everyone else is wearing this cute skirt or this cute crop top, and I want to keep up with that trend or like that style. And so that causes a lot of young people to buy things. And also fast fashion is super cheap, and that's like another thing. It's about like income of like families, and I understand how like sometimes sustainable fashion can be expensive because like, you know, it's made by hand and reworked, but I feel like you don't have to start with your entire closet to be sustainable, because like you can just like, for some pieces you can have sustainable clothing and you can gradually make your way up. But I feel like for my clothing specifically, I don't make them too expensive because um they're like, I've already like practiced my sewing skills enough that they don't take like super long time to make. And feel like as we continue to develop, sustainable fashion would be like cheaper if people are like more willing to buy it. And I think that sustainable is just way better for the environment. And yeah, that's like the basic gist of it. Yeah.
No, I think that's all a great point. And I mean, too, it is like people I don't think account for the cost of a lot of like clothing too, in the way that you're talking that you've resewn it or modeled it, or, you know I have a friend of mine who she does like she'll take flannels and she does the half cut down and puts
I've
two
seen them for
flannels
that.
together. Yeah, and like acid washes them
That's cool.
just like for herself. But like that takes time, and that takes buying those things to be able to make it. So you have to like make up for that I don't think people think about. And I think what you just said too is great. Like start with one thing. So my good friend and I, she got in the pandemic, she got into crocheting and I got into knitting. I had started but got back into it, and we made a pact that anytime we want a new sweater, we just have to knit or sew it. And it is expensive depending on like what you want. It probably costs between like $50 to $75 to get the yarn to do it, and then maybe like 2 months to actually make the thing. But
Yeah.
it's kind of satisfying. I have two sweaters. I don't have them on right now because I left them at home. But I think that that's such a great point that you made. And so I'm curious, like, do you think in your generation, I know when I was in high school, I think if you said that you went to a thrift store, it was like, oh, you went to a thrift store? Like I grew up in the Ugg boot generation. Ugg boots, North Face backpacks, Sperry's, or like the fuzzy North Face jackets. So I don't know if it's different for you guys. Like, is going to thrift stores, is doing these secondhand things a little bit more commonplace or more talked about now, like in your school?
In my school specifically, I definitely think being like sustainable is kind of becoming popular now. Like in all my classes, we talk about sustainability. Like
If only
even
I
in
had a
math
time
class,
machine.
or like even in math class where you wouldn't expect it to come up. But I feel like it's becoming more worldwide now in the community. And so for my community specifically, I know for like my friends, they're like starting to go to thrift stores because they think it's like becoming a trend a bit. I think so. Because like sometimes you can get vintage, like unique things from thrift stores that you would never find in the store. And so it's definitely becoming a trend. But there are like people who still buy a lot of fast fashion. Like I know there's people who buy bulk of Shein stuff. Like it's like a very cheap brand, yeah, from Asia or something.
It's a
And
cheap brand store, Mom. I saw your
yeah,
face. It's really cheap.
it's crazy because I see people like they have like a lot of coupon codes, and so they would put all of them and then they would buy it for like so cheap, but it's like so bad for the environment because they buy so much, you know. And yeah, I just think that platform, I know people use Depop these days. It's a reselling platform and there's a lot of like thrifted people, but I feel like there's a problem to it where like there are a lot of people who resell thrifted clothing, like overprice it way too much. So I think that's like another reason why it's kind of hard for sustainability and like sustainable clothes to move even further because of price. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's chic, as you said, right? It's like the chic, it's unique, it's special, and therefore the price goes up. One of the things that I think is interesting is that people who care about the environment, you know, and are thinking about their clothing that they're wearing, don't recognize, or perhaps they don't want to process that polyester, acrylic, nylon, these are all things that are made from fossil fuels. It's not just fossil fuels to make them, but it's actually an ingredient in those. So you are literally wearing dirty oil and gas when you are wearing those fake materials, and as a result are contributing to the climate crisis and to environmental degradation and to the devastation of people's lives where the oil and gas extraction is taking place. So I think most people don't actually process that. And that's why reusing is so valuable, because nobody had to frack a new well in order to get that new garment for you to wear that Jessie made for you.
Yeah, and it's just like, if you reuse, you're just like giving the resources like trees, plants, some time to like replenish. Like environmental science, we talk about how we overexploit like the land so much that we don't give time for the land to regenerate. And like for some resources like coals and fossil fuels, they take thousands of years to just like regenerate. And so like once we use it all, what's going to happen? Like a lot of like businesses shut down, like I don't know what's going to happen. So it's really important to be sustainable now. And you don't have to do a lot. You just need to, take it step by step, because anything would be better than nothing. So yeah.
No, I agree. And I think I'm the numbers person here. So just put a number to also what Maya just said. According to EPA statistics in 2017, more than 16 million tons of textile waste occurred in America. And synthetic fabrics like polyester, lycra, and nylon can take 30 to 40 years to break down fully. So, I mean, we all know plastic takes like millions of years to break down. So those clothes are still taking forever. And it said that it's also estimated by the MacArthur Foundation that less than 1% of the material used to produce clothing is recycled into something more. So that's a loss of $100 billion worth of materials every year. So it's also like a big drain on the economy and things like that. And I think it's, people don't estimate too, like you're saying, and we're all aware, I think, there are money limitations for people, there's access to resources, all that. But sometimes the reason those things, like a good pair of jeans, if you pay $75 up front for like a really good pair of jeans, they're going to last you a bajillion years, like a really long time. But if you pay for the $15 fast fashion jeans, they're probably going to wear out in like 1 to 2 years, and then you're going to have to buy again. So it's also like, are you paying for quality versus quantity? And I know I love thrifting jeans now because they're always way better quality than the ones I buy brand new in like those stores, because I do think they're a cheaper quality usually.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, it's like kind of hard to say, because some people don't want their clothing to last that long just so that they can continue to, revive their closet. I've seen so many YouTube videos of like closet cleanouts. And I think like a lot of people, they would always think like, oh, I'm just going to donate the clothes. There's no problem. It's not going to have any environmental effects. But personally, I don't think that all the clothes get donated, because I saw this YouTube channel of, I think it's H&M or something like that, or they talk about donation clothes, where basically they show where the clothes actually go, and they actually don't always donate all of them to like the lower income people. They just keep it in like a storage area or just like throw it away. So I don't think that donation is always the solution to everything. And that's like the kind of false belief that everyone thinks like, oh, donation clothes, yeah, no problem, it's going to fix every problem. But I don't think it is. And also, it's also hard to like, for some people to thrift, because these days I learned something in my theory of knowledge class recently about this thing called the spotlight effect, where it's like a lot of people, they think that other people around them are paying attention to them more than they actually are. So it's just like people always focus on their appearance, like, oh, I have to look pretty today, or like wear this piece of clothing because they're paying attention to me. But in reality, not a lot of people are. It's just like this cognitive bias that people have. And like, it's just, I think a lot of reason for sustainability problems is just like the way people think. It's just how humans are, biases. It's just, the teenage brain is just like that.
Yeah, but I think it's not just the teenage brain. I think that there are a lot of people that are very self-important.
Yeah.
And of course, we're all self-important to a certain degree, but you've got to learn how to check your ego, right? And say, it's not really all about me. Or as you said, are people really watching me? No, probably not. I'm not really that important, you know. But I'm going to ask you, Jessie. So, you know, been talking about these different kinds of materials, some of which, you know, perpetuate fossil fuels. Of course, if we stop using the fossil fuels, then we can use clean energy, wind and sun, and all our businesses will continue to thrive. And we don't need those dirty fossil fuels killing the planet. But so we've talked about these different kinds of materials. When you do your clothing, do you have a preference for certain kinds of materials, or do you just take anything? Like, how do you figure out what you're going to work with to create a piece?
So basically, I think my first step is that it depends based on like if I'm going to a thrift store, if I'm going to use some clothing that like my friends provide me, because they have a lot of waste also. So for thrift store wise, I would just like walk around. I would like touch the material and make sure that like, you know, they're thick enough or something. And sometimes if I like the style of something, but not the material of something, I would mix that material with something that I have to make it more durable. And so I don't waste anything. And then sometimes I would gather all like the old clothing that my friends have, and then I would just rework anything. I would like try my best to think of like any type of design to rework it all. And I always come up with solutions. Like if this doesn't feel right here, I'll add a piece of fabric here, or I'll add this softer fabric so it like feels better on like your skin. And so yeah, that's my process. And then for material, I also think about like how I want the design to be. So like if it's like a summer top, you know, you don't want too thick of a material, or if it's like a winter top, you want something thicker. And I just play around and just fix it as I create, because like that's just like how I work and wire. Yeah.
And how did you learn to sew? Is it something that you like learned yourself? Is it family taught? How'd you get into that?
I actually never went on YouTube to sew. I just followed the instructions on the sewing machine. And then, you know, because I've made clothing before, like using basic materials, like for Halloween costumes, like, you know, just glue or hot glue gun. And then I just basically follow the same like structure, but instead I use thread from the sewing machine. And I just draw a template myself, because I can't like, for the designs I have in my head, they don't have tutorials on YouTube. And so I just like work it out like somehow, just, you know, the instinct, the muscle memory. But sometimes if I want to like learn a specific skill, for example, you know how like some clothing have ruffle edges, like they ruffle. So I didn't know how to do that. So I just like searched it up, like a simple thing. And then I just learned it from the internet. Just like very, very basic skills. But like design wise, I just create it myself.
Okay, so this is like crazy impressive. So my mother was she was a phenomenal knitter, and now Annika's becoming a phenomenal knitter, and she was also a phenomenal seamstress, right? She was a mathematician, she was a math professor, she was a PhD, she was just like superb. But she always sewed. Like when I was growing up, all my clothes were always made by my mother. My wedding dress when I married Annika's father was made by my mother, as well as all the bridesmaids' dresses. Like, I mean, she could make, it sounds like you, right? Simple things, elegant things, everything. And somehow, right, I never got taught. I know there were a couple of times when I would sort of ask her to show me things. And then of course I quickly got bored. And so I never learned. And to think that I had the opportunity to learn that incredible skill and didn't, and here you just like literally make it up out of whole cloth, right? Reuse cloth is just so amazing to me. Like, is anybody in your family that you've been exposed to sew that you would watch over the years? Or is it really just come from like the ether world, or not the ether world, the universe somehow into you?
No one in my family sews, surprisingly. I mean, I think my grandma did, but I never like watched her sew. I think it just came from nowhere. But my mom was a pretty artistic person, so I guess I got some skill from her. But yeah, I don't know, because I think because of my art background, it helped me think of ways like, how do I make this seam like curve this way or like go back around? Like one time, one of my first sewing projects was taking these shorts, like maybe like Adidas shorts, and turn into like a one shoulder top. Um, I just winged it.
That's
I just
impressive.
and then it worked out. So it just did. I don't know how to explain it. It just comes.
I think that's incredible. And I just think too, like you saying that you just kind of taught yourself and like that you just followed the machine is like, I could, I could never, when I started knitting, I had my mom show me like these 1, 2 things, and I'm a very visual person. So then after like I was on YouTube trying to figure out how to do the different stitches and way you do things, and like I need so much help. I knit a blanket last year and I needed my friend. I was like, you have to show me how to do this stitch because I don't know. So I think that's just super impressive and is like really one of those talents that I think when people have and they're able to use it, it's just incredible. Like, yeah, I wish I could sew. That would be cool.
Yeah, it's very fun. I really, really enjoy it. And it's just like, it's so fun to create because I have a plan in my head, but it like a lot of times never go the way I think of it because when I'm in the middle of a project, I'll be like, oh, I should add this thing. Like this would look so cool on that. So like I think that's just how it works because sometimes the plan's not always like the best way to go. I just sometimes the vibe will make it.
I almost wish too. I don't know. So like when we were in middle school, we had like home ec basically, and you had to do the cooking and you had to do the sewing. And the sewing was just that year we just made like 2 kinds of pillows. It wasn't really anything cool. And like you could take it in high school, but it wasn't required. And I almost, not that I wanted to be required, but I was like, maybe if they had given me the option in middle school to sew whatever I wanted, I would have been more interested in it. But instead, I just had to do this like little pillow, and I had my teacher always yelling at me, like, your stitches aren't straight. And it wasn't really about like just learning and trying. It was like, do it this way or don't do it at all. And that really made it negative. So, like, I'm glad that you have a very like wonderful experience with this.
It's funny because like I had a home ec or whatever it was called in 6th grade. I remember we'd also did sewing, but it was always hand sewing. So I felt so limited because like, you can't just so time consuming and like the stitches aren't tight if you use your hands. If you use sewing machine, it's like really tight. But anyways, like I remember a project that we did. It was like you would take a t-shirt from your house and you would sew all the edges and make it into a pillow. So you have like a body pillow. It was like really fun. But yeah, I just felt like in the past when I was doing sewing projects, it was very limited. So that's why I decided to expand to a sewing machine because at first I was questioning about the sewing machine. I was like, am I really able to execute this and use it? But after I learned how to like use the sewing machine itself, I just went for it because yeah, why not?
So do you have, and it doesn't, I think I know the answer, but I want to check it out. So do you have sort of that you mainly do tops or you mainly do bottoms or you mainly do dresses? Like, do you have or do you just do anything?
Overall, so far, I've done the most tops because I feel like there's more, it's easier to be creative with. But in the past, I've done sweatpants where I would make like, take all the scraps I have that I made from my tops and turn them into like a color block sweatpant. That took a really long time because I didn't know the strategy to do that because I had too many squares which made it really time consuming. And I thought that like, okay, next time I make a sweatpant, I need to make like bigger pieces of fabric. So it's not weird. So that was my first attempt. And then I've also made a lot of sets with like, I would take a long skirt and turn it into like a top and a bottom. Yeah, so mainly I just do tops, but I have done pants before.
I don't know. It sounds like you do everything.
I want to like get into like making dresses, but I will have to wait on that.
So when you envision sort of your evolution, right? And when you're done high school and you go on in your life, are you thinking that this will be part of your professional path? And how will you, whether it is or whether it's not, like what will be your next steps, and how will you incorporate this, do you think, into your life?
Yes, in the future for like profession wise, I really want to do something like clothing business and like business related because I like business too. So I want to use that art and business and mesh them together. And for like clothing business, I was envisioning like a sector that has like manufactured sustainable clothing and then also like a section where it's like one-on-one rework unique clothing, so it's like it has different parts to it, and maybe potentially create other brands too, but I'm not sure yet. But that was like my vision so far.
I think
Was or
that's so
is?
cool. Yeah.
You said was my vision, was or is? Is
What
your
my-
vision? Well, you said it was my vision. So I'm saying, was it or is it? Like, is this
Yeah,
your current
that's my
path?
vision right now. Yeah.
I think that's so cool. And do you like when you talk with your friends about this, or your peers, whether they're your friends or not your friends, what do people think about, like, what are these conversations, or what are they, their thoughts on all of this?
I have a lot of friends who like want things too. They love it. Yeah, like one time one of my friends was like, "Oh, I want this jacket. Can you give it to me?" And I was like, "Sure." And I just gave it to her because it's so convenient. Like I don't have to ship it to anyone. And yeah, they're really supportive of it. Like they buy from me. They sometimes I would get my friends to model just to,
That's
make it
cool.
interesting. And it's just really fun. A great time to socialize with your friends while also doing the sustainable work. So
I think that's
like,
great.
it's really fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's very
I
fun.
remember. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No,
Oh,
well, I'm more interested sort of in the evolution of all this. And yet, so you're creating this amazing business,
Mhm.
right? And we're going to make sure we want to make sure people know how to find you. So we're going to say that multiple times. And yet you're using the proceeds, at least in part, to support good things like the Green Amendment movement in New Jersey,
Mhm.
which, right? So as a young person embarking on this professional journey, what brings you to the place where you say, you know what, I want to take what my proceeds and I want to give it to something good to help somebody else?
Yeah, I've learned about like Green Amendment through the newspaper, and also people in my school in the Green Blue Committee, they're connected. Do you know like Navia and the
Yep, the New Jersey
Navia,
Sustainability Coalition, they're fabulous.
she's in my school just a grade below me, and like there was this fair at my school or like for homecoming, and there were like little booths, and she was in one of the booths, and she asked me to sign the petition. I was like, wait, this is pretty cool. So then I wanted to like do something, support it too. And so I wanted to like share this petition link to my platform also. So it all started from school, honestly, to know about like this Green Amendment. And I want to further support it using my platform.
Wow.
I think that's so great. And I just feel like you talking to that you may want to have a future in making sustainable clothing is just like part of what inspires me about your guys' generation. Is like, again, I know when I was in high school, I was a tree hugger and I was a weirdo. Like I remember somebody in my homeroom when I walked in threw their plastic water bottle into the trash can, and I picked it up out and dropped it in the recycling. And the hell I received for that for months was like not even ridiculous. Obviously now, cool, I'm great and people love them, tree hugger. But I just think that's so wonderful. And I think it's so great that, you have fellow classmates that were even so excited about it. And we're like, oh, like Jess would want to do this. Let me talk to her about it. And I'm curious, what you think as a young person to kind of know that there are laws and rules in this country that do not mean the government has to think about like your generation, and doesn't have to ensure the fact that you guys are going to have a clean environment, or that future generations are going to have a clean environment, and just your thoughts on what it would mean for you to get a green amendment and be like, oh, you guys actually have to think about me now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. Like the government, they don't really think about how like the generation works. I know, especially like politicians too, they only care about themselves for certain things, winning an election and stuff. So I think it's very important that how like our generation to make a change, because we understand who we are and how we can further have a sustainable impact through knowing the culture of our community at school or just around us. And so it's important to take action for ourselves. So yeah, I agree with you.
So do you recognize how much of a leader you are for within your school, but also really I think much more broadly, in terms of broader society, like what you're doing, how you're doing it, your mindfulness for supporting social issues through your work with the clothing, but also in how you're using the proceeds to try to help pass a green amendment to save future generations. I mean, this is very impactful. Do you see what a leader you are? Because you are.
Thank you. Yeah, I do my best to make change, and I think everyone is a leader in some sort of way in my school, because my school, everyone is very supportive about it. It's really nice actually, because everyone is we always have, presentations about sustainability like in front of the entire school. And then recently the school also cares because they invited this global speaker who talked about material science and like the sustainable science, like how do we build this thing sustainably, but at like not super expensive costs. So it's like very informative because the school supports it too. So I think like everyone is in my school are like becoming leaders in this sustainable movement. And I also like try to encourage my friends to be sustainable, to not buy from Shein. It's okay if you do a little bit, but like don't be excessive about it. Yeah.
I think that's great. And like you two, I think like Maya just said, you really are a leader. And I think there is very much something to be said too about, gaining profit from something and then putting it towards a good cause. So I don't know if you heard about the whole Kylie swim poor quality incident. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do. It's like all over TikTok.
Yeah.
What is it? So for those of us who are not all over TikTok,
the generational aspect comes in of the podcast.
Yes. Could you please enlighten?
Yeah. So for anyone that doesn't know, so Kylie Jenner, right, the Jenner Kardashian people, she like does her own skincare line, her own makeup, whatever, was pronounced like the youngest billionaire, but I think it's actually might not be true because there's a little bit of accounting issue. Yeah. So she made a swim line and, she's hyping it up. And again, supposedly she does have a lot of money, but supposedly she has billions, whatever. And everybody, and so of course so many people bought the swimwear because they like Kylie, so they wanted the swim. And it's not my taste. I'm not gonna wear that swimwear, but I have people that are just like, if you want to wear it, great, it's interesting, it's cool. But a lot of people did also buy it because it's Kylie, and like, okay. And so all on TikTok, Mom, are these videos of people getting the swimwear, and it's like stitches are ripped out, the fabric on the breast area is very see-through, the part that goes under your crotch is like an inch wide, like nobody could fit their genitalia in there. Like it was just the worst quality people had got. And so number one, my personal opinion, I want to hear your thoughts too, Jess. Number one, I think it's flippin' awful that she has so much money and she did clearly no thought into how am I going to produce a quality product, even if I make less money from it, also knowing that people were going to buy it just because her name is on it. And then too, it's like, it's this whole like, you're already making so much money. You couldn't even put the money into making a good product so that you could make more money. And I know you're not going to do anything with more of that money, but put it in your own bank account. So like, that's my whole thing with it. So I think you not only making a quality product, make an environmentally sustainable product, but also saying, I'm going to put whatever you want of these profits to a great cause. I'm going to say a great cause. I mean, green amendments are the best cause, is speaks to who you are as a person as well.
Yeah, and like about that Kylie Jenner thing, I remember one time I checked her swim site as a joke. I was just curious. And like a piece of plastic-y swimsuit that could barely cover anything was like $80. Like I feel like even certain fast fashion brands can like overcharge also, like Urban Outfitters. I love that store, but like they overcharge a lot. So it's not just like sustainable clothing, because I think another thing that I'm like a little weird about is like how a lot of people complain about sustainable clothing being so expensive, but then there are people who are willing to spend like $80 on a cheap swimsuit. Like that's just crazy to me. And like I remember like TikTok, they would joke about how like it's her daughter making all these clothing for her, and it's like child labor, and like she's forcing everyone to make it for her. So it's crazy. And also another trend that very evident today in our generation is how like people love brand names and they would buy anything, like a Gucci t-shirt. They're willing to spend like $1,000 for just a t-shirt. And it's just to keep up with trends. And there are a lot of brand names like, Kylie Swim, who are not sustainable at all, but they would just buy it for the sake of buying it. And it's just crazy how
that trend thing though, that's not new. That's not
say what was your
I was growing
what was
up,
yours, Mom?
It was and I actually never had any because like I said, my mom made everything, but alligator shirts. I think they made a resurgence at some point, but that was like when I was young, like that was like all the guys, right? Because it was a guy thing. All the guys had alligator shirts, and then they started to make some for girls. There was that, and at one point there was Guess jeans, I think, and I don't know. It's the same thing. It's like, if somebody slaps a name on it and somehow gets the marketing correct, then anybody will buy it regardless. And I think it's just so absurd. I'm still trying to find that right marketing hook for the Green Amendment movement, but I probably have because we inspired you to support. But it's crazy. It's crazy. If you get that name recognition, it doesn't really matter what you do. You'll get the dollars from people.
I mean, I know Champion is like coming back now, or has been coming back. And I remember being a toddler and my dad having like 15 pairs of Champion shorts, like stained with paint, Champion t-shirts, all that, like you would buy in the bulk pack. And now I see people wearing them like, I paid $55 for this Champion hoodie. And I'm like, oh, okay. My dad would get like a t-shirt pack of 5 for like $10. It's so interesting.
Yeah. And just like what's really upsetting about like this situation is like, for example, like Kylie, she has sisters who have their own brand also, like Skims, I think Good American from Khloe Kardashian, whatever. And I know that those brands are actually like have quality products from what I've heard. And I feel like she has so many resources, and like she can go to her sisters for advice, like product material production, like clothing production. And then like she still decides to rip off so many consumers with like her clothing. So it's just annoying how like people are selfish like that. Like I know it's really common, but it's just
but it's hard to process that people can be so. I mean, it's really just comes down to greed, right?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that we could do is just be better ourselves. You can't force other people to fix their clothing.
So this is a perfect segue, I feel like, to our close. But Jess, what we always do, so before you get off, we're going to want to tell people how to find you and support you and all that. But before we get there, one of the things we always do, and I feel like you being of the younger generation is perfect for this, is we always say we talk about intense topics sometimes, we talk about hard things, But the purpose of this show is also to be like, you gotta have hope. Talking about environment and climate change can be a dark world sometimes, but we're always of the aspect of hope and changing things. So if you have any words of inspiration or thoughts on like how, like, you know, if it's just like, I think people should do this every day to better the world, or whatever your parting words are to the world.
Yeah. The first thing I want to say is like sustainability is not as hard as a lot of people think. Like just do the smallest things ever. If you have an old shirt, cut it a little bit and it'll be cute. Like it's not that hard to make something a little bit cuter. So just take little steps every single day. And you don't have to like completely cut off everything. Just take a little step. So I think it's very hopeful for the future if people understand that it's not like so hard, like unimaginable to be very sustainable. It's doable. You just have to try. And I'm very hopeful for everyone that they can do it. I believe in everyone.
I love that.
Oh my gosh, you're amazing. You are just amazing. So how do people find you so that they can support your amazing business and follow you as it grows to the amazing vision that you have?
My main source of like communication with people would be like through Instagram. It's like AGL Clothing Reworks. And yeah, that's my main source. That's where I post like all like the cute pictures, the product pictures, and also like the trendy like outfit pictures where you can like pair things together. So it's like you can get inspiration from that page too. And that's where I like announce things too, if I'm gonna drop more clothing and stuff. So that's like the best way to find me. Yeah,
that is awesome. And we will put that description, or put that link in the description of the episode so people can give a little click. And everybody should go support Jess, buy some interesting clothes. I'm gonna have to go take a look later because I think my closet needs a rework, but I'm not gonna get rid of stuff unless I'm donating it to sustainable places. Maybe we'll give it to you, Jess. Do you want people to like give you clothes? Like if people are like, I'll send you stuff.
if they want to, I'm like open to anything. I could just rework anything. Yeah.
There you go. All right. That is awesome. Thanks for coming on, Jess. We'll put all that in and go check her out at AGL Reworks in
AGL.
AJL
Reworks
on Instagram. Thanks, Jess. It was good to talk with you.
Thanks, Jess. Thanks for your just amazingness. We so appreciate you.
Bye.
That is awesome.
Wow. Oh my gosh. She is just like a powerhouse of vision and inspiration. And, that's really amazing to have that kind of talent.
Yeah. And I think I do like her point at the end of like, if you just want to make a shirt cute, like give it a little cut, do something. Like I've been experimenting with shirts. I wanted some like cool cutoff tees for the gym, and I just took some old t-shirts that I'm not wearing a lot, and I just cut them up. And I think it's just like experiment with your clothes a little bit. Go find people like Jess that you could have things reworked. I have an old pair of jeans that I'm going to throw some paint on, is my plan for this summer, to like make a little bit more stylish rather than pay $75 for the exact pair of painted jeans I saw online. So I think it's cool, and I wish I could do what she does.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, and really go buy from Jess, because she's a good person building a good business, making a difference, and donating proceeds to support good works like the Green Amendment movement and perhaps some other things. So support her, AJL Reworks on Instagram.
Yeah,
and
we
I'm
will
sure
put that.
from there,
Yeah,
you'll be able to find her other purchasing platforms.
We will put that in the description so you guys can find it easily.
Fantastic.
So, and as always, what?
Well, I was gonna say, so that's everybody's assignment to check out Jess. Your other assignment is, if you have a frequently asked question, send it to where, Annika?
At Green Amendments on Instagram.
There you go.
We'll put a little question thing. You can DM us. You can also DM at Green Jeans Pod. Our wonderful producer editor Quincy helps us out with that Instagram. So at Green Jeans Pod, at Green Amendments on Instagram, either one, whichever floats your boat, whatever sprinkles your donuts, all that type of stuff. As always, if you enjoy what Maya and I do, you like this podcast, give us a follow on Spotify, on YouTube, like our videos, share our videos. And of course, if you would like to support the Green Amendment, if you know Jess and want to support the New Jersey Green Amendment, you can go to www.njgreenamendment.org. If you want to support our larger work, of course, go to www.forthegenerations.org, make a donation, sign a petition, do all that great stuff. As I always say, it always just takes one action from one person to help make a difference. Or I started saying that.
And it all started with the Delaware Riverkeeper Network. So www.delawareriverkeeper.org. I always have to put in a plug for my other hat as the Delaware Riverkeeper. So many hats, but they're all blended together because it's all about saving the world.
Exactly.
So, and just want you to know, the second edition of the book is going really well. And pretty soon I'm going to be turning it into the publisher and they will be working their magic. So
everybody
the second edition will be coming out.
Everybody should keep listening because maybe there's a discount code for books in the future. I don't know.
I'm sure there will. Or if people have ideas for talks, right? Because we're going to start scheduling talks for in the fall. If people want to get the what is it? The new goods on the new book.
I don't want to say like get the good word because that's like a Bible talk.
Yeah, no, it's not a Bible talk. But intended to be inspirational.
Inspirational.
Okay. With that,